in the 70s. The women's movement was underway, and we wanted to use our talents, skills to further the rights of women and girls. It was a very exciting time.
In 1974, ERA was founded by feminist Berkeley law grads.
There were more women in the law school, and we were getting organized, and we wanted some space, and there was none. Just a small little room that was set aside supposedly per state statute to be available to women who were, quote, indisposed. We decided we would take over that space, and we removed the cot and the chair, and we put in a desk and a telephone. And that's how it all got started.
Equal Rights Advocates has its beginning in a time of such great change in the country. Roe v. Wade had just been decided. Title IX, which promised equity in schools, had been passed. Billie Jean King was beating a male competitor before a televised audience of 90 million. It was a time of promise, but also of great urgency.
Entire industries were closed to women. The best a woman could hope to make was 58 cents to each dollar a man made. Women were losing jobs and forced out of work because of their weight, because of their age, because of their marital status, for being pregnant. It was not easy to be a woman in the workforce.
There was a lot of young women and people across genders ready for change. So it was a perfect recipe for the birth of Equal Rights Advocates. The very first case that ERA brought in the 70s is really emblematic about how it's worked over the next 5 decades.
So in 1974, our co-founder, Wendy Williams, argued before the United States Supreme Court that California couldn't deny disability insurance to pregnant women.
And the thing is, we lost because sometimes our country isn't ready for the change it needs. We lost that battle, but we won the war in 1978 when we passed the Pregnancy Discrimination Act, which really confirmed that pregnancy discrimination is in fact a form of sex discrimination.
In 1975, ERA put an end to the no girls rule at county soccer championships for 9-year-old Amy Love. Just 2 years later, ERA successfully challenged Greyhound's policy of excluding qualified women bus drivers through unnecessary minimum height and weight requirements, resulting in a landmark settlement that ended the company's sexist hiring criteria.
It was not easy to be a woman in the 70s. It was also not easy to be queer. Harvey Milk was doing a lot of his work in San Francisco, and he was assassinated the next year. And 1977 was the year where ERA founded the first national lesbian rights project to defend the rights of lesbian workers and their families. That was not common at the time. That was not something that was heard of. And we did it here because ERA wanted to be on the forefront of fighting for all women and people of all marginalized gender identities. In 1978, ERA actually challenged the forced maternity leave policy at Richmond Unified School District, brought it all the way up to the Supreme Court, and changed that policy. School and work are 2 places where opportunities really matter for women, and where bias against women can be particularly harmful and particularly prevalent. And that's why back in the 70s, ERA decided to narrow in on those areas to think about supporting women at school and at work.
ERA has been at the forefront of the gender justice movement for 50 years.
Work in the 70s was all about the firsts, really bringing the first cases to enforce laws, making sure that women had access to lots of different jobs. And when we think back about how far we've come since those firsts, it's really inspiring. We know we have a lot more to do, but that decade really broke the initial barriers.